So we do two sections together because they're both short. So we group 13.1 and 13.2 together, but our key concept, I don't have an essential question for this one. I don't know why. You guys can make one up if you need them. But our key concept, ecology, is the study of organisms and their relationships. And just like evolution, when we talk about ecology, we're talking about stuff that is happening out in nature. We're not talking about things that us as humans interfere in. Levels of organization. We start at the most basic level, we move up to the most complicated. So the Earth is organized into levels, starting with the smallest, ending in the largest. And we do this in ecology. We also do this in anatomy. When we talk about the human body, if you guys ever take anatomy, we start at the lowest level, our cells, and then all the way up to our organ systems that work together. But we are on ecology. So we talk about the levels of ecological organization. Level 1, the smallest. An organism is any individual living thing. So we have this picture. And you can see the circles get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we're going to talk about each level and what they include. So the basic level is just one individual living thing. And in our example, it is just an alligator. Level 2 is a population, a group of the same species that live in one area. So you can see the circle got a little bit bigger and it includes a group of alligators. We're not including any other animals yet, just the group of the same species, the alligators. And then the next level up, level 3, is a community. A community is a group of different species that live together in one area. So you can see our circle got a little bit bigger. We got the alligators, we got the turtle, we got the bird, the fish that the bird is catching, other birds over here. We generally don't include ourselves, like I said, when we talk about ecology. But there's a ton of stuff in the water too. There's other fish, there's algae, there's bacteria, there's plankton. That can all be included in the community. Level 4, circle gets a little bit bigger. An ecosystem includes all of the organisms as well as all of the non-living things that these organisms need to survive. The climate, soil, water, rocks, sunlight, oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen. The ecosystem includes all of that. And then level 5, which isn't even included in the picture, but it's all the way up here. A biome is a major regional or global community of organisms characterized by the climate conditions and the plant communities that thrive there. So if I told you that the climate conditions were hot, dry and sandy, and that the plant life that lived there were cacti with a bunch of different cactus, where would you think you were? Where do cactus live? No, nobody wants to take it. Yeah, good, Kyle. In the desert. Good, Cynthia. The desert is a biome. The climate community, hot, dry, and its plant community is cacti. And there's a dozen different biomes all across the world. And real science, scientists study all of these levels using different methods. A lot of the time, it's just observation. We talked about observation way back when we talked about the scientific method in chapter 1, if you were here. It is the first step of the scientific method. So there are scientists who just visit places and observe the nature there. They observe the different types of animals, how those animals interact. Are they predator? Are they prey? Where they live? How much water they need to survive? They make observations, they take notes. Experimentation. Easier done in a lab, but it can be done out in the field. Or modeling. A lot of the times we use models. There's a lot of things we can't predict. Earthquakes use a lot of models. Can't cause an earthquake just to study it. The spread of disease, we use models. We can't spread a disease just because we want to study it. That was actually done one time called the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, and they got in a lot of trouble. Part of the reason the African American community doesn't trust the medical community. Just one instance. So scientists have learned to use modeling instead of real animals or real people. I think that was your last one. That was your last slide on 13.1, right? The next slide I'm just talking about. So these aren't stuff you have to write down. These are just things that I'm going through. Observations, the careful act of watching something. Scientists study populations, Gorongosa National Park, and citizen science initiatives. You guys can actually make these observations and help scientists with their work. They're called citizen science initiatives. If you have a telescope, you can look at the stars in the sky. There's national parks with cameras set up. You guys can sign up to look at all these cameras and then document where the animals are found, what they're doing, things like that. I don't know what happened to that picture. I think it's the same one though. But on to 13.2. Every ecosystem includes both living and non-living factors. So we just said an organism, population, community, ecosystem, all the living and all of the non-living things. In a certain area. Living things. Our fancy science vocabulary word for living things, we call them biotic factors. And these include all the living things you see in this picture and some you don't see: plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, algae, all the prokaryotes, all the parasites, all the little amoeba, parameciums swimming through the water. Those are all living things. Non-living things are called abiotic factors. When you use the root word a, just the letter a, you put it in front of a word, it just means not. So abiotic just means not living. And these are moisture, the water content, temperature, wind, sunlight, soil. They are not living, but they are still very important factors to all the living things in that area. Biodiversity is the variety of all living things in an ecosystem. The more biodiversity a whole ecosystem has, the more likely it will survive for a long time. It's kind of like variation. Last chapter, or chapter 10, we talked about variation within a species increases the chances of survival for that entire species. Biodiversity is the same concept. The more variety of plants, animals, fungus, bacteria that a certain ecosystem has, the more likely it will survive if a disaster happens. If there's a flood, fire, earthquake, volcano, disease. And there are small areas all across the world that exhibit exceptionally high species diversity, and they are called biodiversity hotspots. A lot of the time, it's the rainforest, the jungles. The places that get a lot of rain, a lot of water. Water equals life. The more ready water there is in an area, the more organisms you will find. And keystone species is a species that has an unusually large effect on its ecosystem.